I just bought this Ford Ranger for $500 because the previous owner says it has a blown engine. But today, I'm gonna try to fix it for 50 bucks. So I bought a borescope just for this project because basically, the issue at hand is that the spark plug flew out of the engine. So I'm gonna try to rethread the cylinder and put in a helicoil.
So here you can see me putting grease on the actual rethreader, and this is to prevent metal shavings from falling into the cylinder. Then I'm cleaning out the cylinder head with brake cleaner and a shop rag. Then I thread on the helicoil onto the brand new spark plug and apply some red Loctite. I was feeling kind of daring, so 20 minutes later I decided to see if the fix worked. And wouldn't you have it? It did.
So it's 24 hours later and the red Loctite should have had time to settle now. So we're gonna try to take the spark plug out, and then I have to hit the helicoil with this little tool here, which basically expands the helicoil a little bit and makes it sit in the cylinder walls. I don't hear any knocking, ticking, nothing. The brakes are decent, but they need to be bled. Shift's decently smooth. I don't hear any clunks. The brakes feel okay. Steering is super smooth. I've got a running and driving car for $500. I fixed it for $30. The AC blows cold, the suspension's all good and everything. Frankly, I feel bad right now.
I've always wanted a truck with a bed cap, so when the previous owner of this truck offered me one for $150, I could not say no. This brings the grand total for this project so far to $680.
That ain't going anywhere.
Pretty good.
Can I keep this stick?
Yeah.
Doing an oil change on this car is probably the most important thing that I've done so far. So first here I'm draining the oil out, and then I'm putting the drain plug back on with a new crush washer. Then I can loosen the old oil filter, put some oil on the new oil filter gasket, and then thread it on. This truck calls for 3.8 liters of full synthetic 5W20, but always make sure to check your dipstick before starting the car. And now she's ready to rip.
For some reason, my truck is idling at 3,000 RPM. Today I want to try to figure out what's going on.
So I have a sneaking suspicion that my throttle plate is just slightly stuck open, because this only happens after I try to accelerate onto the highway. So I'm using some throttle body cleaner and a shop rag in the hopes that it stops it from sticking.
That didn't fix it.
So now that I know that it's not the throttle body, it's time to move on to the air filter and mass airflow sensor. The mass airflow sensor is responsible for metering how much air comes in through the intake. So if it's dirty, it's possible that it's giving the car the wrong air readings and giving it a very rough idle. So now that it's cleaned, I can put everything back together and see if it fixed our problem. So luckily for me, it seems like that fixed it.
There we go. So it's the next day and I'm still having the same issue. But then immediately after giving the truck some gas, it went back to the 3,000 RPM idle.
A lot of the time on older vehicles, the idle air control valve can stick. So I'm going to be soaking it in some carb cleaner in the hopes that it helps free up that valve. I ended up letting it sit for about 20 minutes and then reinstalling it back into the truck. It idled a little bit high, but then after some driving, it actually evened out and fixed my problem. So before I get a bunch of hate comments, I'm going to preface this by saying I know this is not the best way to hook up a radio, but for those of you who have been watching this series, you know that I'm trying to build this Ranger for as cheap as physically possible. So when I realized that this radio didn't fit inside the console, you better bet I did some trimming.
So now I've got a working radio for an all-in cost of $16, which brings the total of this build to $696. I'm really good at keeping my car well maintained, but when it comes to keeping it clean, sometimes I drop the ball. So today we're going to be cleaning the interior of this truck.
I bought this truck a week ago for $500, and I've been doing my best to get it in the best mechanical shape possible, but as a result, I've been kind of slacking on keeping it clean. And I think a lot of people underestimate how important and rewarding it is to have a clean vehicle. I was even feeling kind of embarrassed to show this truck to people because they didn't want to sit on the seats. And I'm so grateful to have friends like mine who are willing to let me use their driveway, materials, and skills to get my car clean. And now look at it, the floors look great, the plastic trim looks brand new, and the seats look a lot better than before. And now I feel a lot more comfortable having people in my truck.
We're going through a heat wave right now, and my AC only works for about 10 minutes.
During the time that it's working, the AC is acting a little bit weird. The low side is sitting around 300 psi, and the AC compressor is struggling to engage. When it does finally engage, the pressure does go down to the correct level, but then after 10 minutes of it running, it just refuses to even try to turn back on. Once it's off, the high side is hot and the low side is warm, and I don't think there's any frost buildup.
So I think the issue could be my thermal expansion valve, but I'm not entirely sure. So if I can get a second opinion from you guys, that would be fantastic.
So this Ranger has clearly seen better days, so today I decided that changing out the tailgate might be a really good way to make the truck look a little bit newer. Old one was held together by Bondo and tape, so when the previous owner of the truck offered me a tailgate for $100, I kind of couldn't say no. The replacement definitely wasn't perfect and did need a little bit of touch-ups, but it's still a lot better off than the one I already had on. So after putting grease on all the connections, I put on 2 coats of paint and 1 coat of clear coat. After waiting for everything to dry, I was finally able to put the new tailgate on, and then I managed to snap my second bolt of the day. Now, I don't know what these bolts are made of, but they were snapping like nothing. Anyways, time for a before and after. I'm pretty happy with these results, and this brings the total of the build to $808.
This door does not want to open. It kind of rust welded itself shut, so I'm going to see if I can force it open and see how bad the rust actually is.
Off camera, I already got the driver's side door open, and it was as simple as just giving it a little bit of force, but this side seems to be a little bit more complicated. So I watched some YouTube videos, and people were basically saying that sometimes the cables lose their tension. So I took off the panel here, and I tried to take a look at it, but everything seemed to be working properly. So I decided to let it soak in some WD-40 and just let it sit for a while.
So it seems like the latch is working, but for whatever reason, the bottom part of the door does not want to open. And it's been a couple hours now that I've been trying to do this, and I cannot seem to get it. So if any of you guys have had this issue, please let me know, or just drop your suggestions down below. Last week, I asked for your help trying to get the suicide door open, so today I'm going to try to fix it.
You guys suggested that I try to kick the door from the inside, and it actually worked right away. And to be honest, I really wasn't expecting it to be that easy. When I opened up the door, I saw that there was a lot of rust, so I decided to put a coating of grease on pretty much everything. And I realized that the rust is pretty much too far gone, and the grease isn't going to stop the spreading of the rust, but at least it'll stop the door from seizing again. I also put some lithium grease inside the latch to try to make it work a little bit smoother, and now the door opens and closes as it should.
I just found a killer deal for some rims and tires. Today, I'm going to be taking it on a 2-hour round trip, which is the furthest it's ever gone from my home. So let's hope that it survives.
So first, I'm going to fill up the gas tank because I want to see what my fuel economy is like on this truck. And then I'm off to drive 1 hour to the seller's house, and she was very nice, but she never mentioned that one of the tires was flat. And by the way, the fuel economy that I got on this trip was actually 9.1 liters per 100 kilometers, which is 26 miles per gallon. Pretty damn good.
So I'm back from my Facebook Marketplace adventure, and I'm a little bit disappointed because one of the tires is flat and has sidewall damage. So I'm gonna have to find a replacement tire, but luckily I was able to get them for $150. So this brings the total of this build so far to $958, and I think that's still pretty good considering these tires have a ton of tread on them. They match the color of the truck, which is pretty cool, and I think I should be able to find a replacement tire for pretty cheap. Today I drove a 2-hour round trip to pick up this bad boy. This is a practically brand new replacement tire, but I cannot mount it myself. So I'm going to be going to my friends at UG Mechanic, and hopefully they'll do it for me.
I swung by the shop and I asked them if they could do me a favor, and instantly they said yes. So the mechanic Emin took the time out of his day to mount this tire and balance it for me. And they were nice enough to do this completely for free, and I cannot be more thankful for them because they have helped me out a lot in the past. The total on this build is now $988, and if it wasn't for them, it would be a lot higher. Anyways, here's a before and after. I need to drill out this bolt so I can install my tailgate and make it not feel like it's about to fall off. But I ended up just replacing one issue with another because the extractor actually broke off inside of the bolt. So I ended up just heating it up and letting my friend Tyler hit it with a hammer for 20 minutes.
I don't know where the really hot piece of metal went, and I'm just gonna ignore that.
Well, she's out.
So I went to the junkyard and got a replacement bolt, so a few days later I was able to install the tailgate. It's still not going to be technically properly installed, but at least now it won't be sitting crooked. I learned from my mistakes, and this time I actually heated up the bolt before trying to remove it, and after working it back and forth a little bit, it actually worked. You can see that I definitely needed this replacement part, and the hardware was also in really rough condition, so I put it inside my ultrasonic cleaner to see what I could do. And while that was marinating, I decided to wire wheel away some of the rust that was there and give it a quick coat of paint. After 15 minutes in the ultrasonic cleaner, it really didn't make too big of a difference, but I'm on a schedule, so I gotta get this back in. And besides the obvious overspray, I think it looks pretty good. And now I can go ahead and reinstall my tailgate. My windshield washer fluid doesn't spray for some reason, so I went to the junkyard and got a new to me washer fluid pump. Now I just gotta take the old one out and put the new one in. Then I refilled it with all the washer fluid that fell out, and it fixed our problem. And now the next thing I'm doing is even easier. My engine air filter is overdue for a change. Here's the old one, and here's the new one. Now after dropping in the new filter, my $500 Ranger is ready to go. If you like watching this kind of content, consider dropping a follow.
The engine in my Ranger has started to develop some lifter ticks, so I'm going to see if this can fix it. So I'm going to put in a quarter of a bottle, then drive around 400 kilometers and see if it fixes the issue. We'll check the color of the oil before and after, and if it's darker, that means that it did some cleaning.
And now all I gotta do is drive it to work all week.
So it has now been 450 kilometers, so it's time to see if the oil has gotten any darker.
The oil has gotten a little bit darker. It's not a huge difference, but you can tell that the Seafoam definitely did some cleaning.
Now let's see if the ticking has improved at all. So the ticking in my engine has clearly not improved. So I'm gonna try switching to some thicker oil to see if that helps. So the truck has been sitting in the cold for the past few hours, so now it's time to see if the ticking is gone. So it seems like even though this issue might not be completely fixed, it's definitely a little bit better than it was before. So if you have any recommendations on what I should try next, let me know in the comments.